we are out the outer beach, Race Point Beach. I am waiting for Frank to come from that direction behind me. I gotta watch for vehicles entering there. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna head that way towards Race Point Light and ask him some fun questions. We go back now 3.5 years, so there's a lot of history, a lot of fun stuff for us to talk about. All we gotta do is wait for Frank to come this way. It's a long walk and it's soft sand, so bear with us and bear with him. His legs are gonna be tired. We have found the Weary Travelers. How was that hike?
Tough.
Hike was fine. People
Tough.
gonna die.
What we'll do is we can head back to civilization. So how was that hike?
That was a ball buster. That was a ball buster.
So you were doing the Thoreau hike.
Yeah.
So you did this when you did the Thoreau documentary back.
2018, 2019. Yeah.
How's it different now than when you did it before?
I'm older. So I'm definitely feeling my age at 46, and we started on Pantford Road? Panet Road?
Pamet Road sounds right.
North Wellfleet, and we barely got here at the beach. So the goal was to get to the lighthouse, and we're nope, not happening today. We'll be back to do the last 2.5 miles.
I'll be there for that too, but it's like you did quite a bit. It's a warmer day than you'd expect.
Very warm, yeah. Old.
Yeah, that didn't necessarily work out in our favor.
No. And Google Maps lies.
Oh man.
It said it was 8 miles. We got in 6. We still had 4 to go. I'm like, no, barely gonna make it. So the trails and the beach and the road is different when it comes to mileage. So you've been warned. Make sure you do your research.
Yeah, these are things you got to know. So since doing the Lady of the Dunes documentary, you've done a lot of stuff in the horror genre. The Rip Van Winkle ones you can see on Amazon Prime. What is it that you like about the horror genre?
Oh, what I like about it is it's a built-in audience. So just by default, if you do something in the horror genre, you got people who want to watch it, whether it's good or not. And like I said, you go where the jobs are. When people keep calling saying, "Hey, we need another horror movie on Rip Van Winkle or Italian giallo film," they're gonna call you and get you a budget. So we've been busy doing that, and got some documentaries coming up soon. So hopefully it'll be the non-horror genre that's calling me back to doing some more films out here in Cape Cod.
What's the one? So how much can you share about what you're going to do in March besides finishing up the Thoreau hike?
Yeah. I'm coming back in March, and it's a small, low-budget horror film that's going to be here on the Outer Cape, and that's all we can say right now. I can say it's a Lovecraft, Edgar Allan Poe inspired story.
That's it. I wanted to make sure I asked. I don't know how much you can share, but it's a teaser. So there you go. We always seem to have interesting things happen, and this time it was
Icing on the cake.
basically you guys were hiking out to Race Point. I was going to meet you, go out to the lighthouse, get some footage there. It was a tough hike, so scrap that, and we ended up, well, let's stop at St. Peter's where Ruth Marie Terry, Lady of the Dunes, is buried. They just happened to be having her new stone unveiled. Her son was there. The family was there. It's like we can't make this stuff up.
So, was her son raised by the father?
No.
What I can share is he was given up to adoption to friends of her mother. And he knew who his real mother was, but he did not know what happened to her when she disappeared in 1974.
Okay.
So for Richard, I'm proud that he's written a book, gotten hopefully some closure, if not all closure, for everything that's happened since the last 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
It is 50 years. It's summer.
We found out, so he didn't know where his mother was.
No.
Until 2 years this all happened.
Right.
It's unreal. Like I've said, her being identified basically wrote the ending of my book. Us showing up kind of unannounced at this makeshift ceremony wrote the end of Richard's book for him, which is, it's one of those, as a writer, I appreciate it so much for him, but as a lover of irony and things like that.
It's a beautiful stone. You have the original marker.
Where did he live? Like, where was he raised?
In Michigan. And she was from Tennessee. She lived in Michigan briefly, then she moved out to the West Coast and came out here to Providence for vacation. And she stayed. She got the title of Lady of the Dunes.
It's one of those things.
He came out with her husband and son. Her husband killed her and took the son back.
No, she got remarried. And it was that the individual that she married, which was this closed case, that he was the one that, because he told the family, she left me, she disappeared, I don't know where she is.
Mm-hmm.
And they tried to investigate, law enforcement tried to get involved, but they could never find out, like, well, we don't know where she is, we don't know her identity, no one's found her, because her identity was missing because her hands were cut off. So they could never identify.
It's wild to think that it's 3.5 years ago that I first came around this.
Mm-hmm.
So when you see like where it started and where it is now, it's sort of like, is there anything that you were surprised at or anything that you wish you'd done differently? As far as everything with documentary, people you talked to, people you didn't talk to.
Good question. Let me think about that. Well, it's not my story anymore. It really never was. I told Richard I'm proud just to be a footnote in your story, in your mom's story. Richard holds the key. It's funny how, like, St. Peter, which I mentioned in the documentary, he's the apostle that holds the keys to heaven and hell. So when it comes to her story, her legacy, it's Richard's duty in a way to write his words, tell his story, and that's that. Our job, and we're done. We did what we felt we needed to do and wanted to do, but it's really it's his story.
Yeah, I can't wait to read his book. He was telling me things about dreams he had before he knew any of this. So that's why I'm fascinated to know what his connections were to his mother before he knew what had happened with her.
So she came out for vacation alone. He wasn't there as a child.
She ran away, I guess would be what, and she ended up here. So her husband that's been labeled as the killer, his father owned a bunch of real estate in Provincetown. So that's sort of like
His connection to
he could come here because maybe his dad knew people, and that would help to cover this up.
But she didn't have the child with her at the time.
no. She gave Richard up to a friend. No, initially I was supposed to be about a month ago in September to hike, and my back gave out. And so if that happened, we would have missed today. And then there's just, Brian was available, let's go down there, let's hike. And we just turned old somewhere between Truro and Provincetown. We cannot get to the lighthouse. So luckily, as we left, we took a B-roll, a beeline. We went to St. Peter's as opposed to having lunch, and we were there to bump into the crowd. Priest was there too. There was a Catholic priest, and they were there to put in the stone. So we were there for the final getting her name back,
which is just unbelievable when you think about it. The odds, like how are they? There was a bee flying around my chowder. Get out of here!
Not good. Well, I'm not a big. Actually, my eyes are bigger than my stomach, and that chowder was absolutely delicious.
Chowder was perfect. I was shocked how perfect chowder was.
Like absolutely, just you weren't kidding when you said it's the best one.
Yeah. Well, to me, this, like the leaves, the sappy trees, this is real Cape Cod to me that I experienced at Dennis. So it's kind of just pushed out of the way. We're not surrounded by people wondering, oh, we're doing a podcast. What's going on?
But yeah, as far as the whole process of the Lady of the Dunes documentary was, like I was saying, was there anyone that you wish you had spoken to, or anyone, like, I'm trying to think of how to sum it up, because like you said, our part's done. So it's like, this is almost like a retrospective.
Spoken to. There were a lot more people who spoke to behind the scenes that just did not want to get in front of a camera. And I'm sure they would have given more insight about the time period, Jimmy Meads. You know, we had Jimmy Jr. and Michael. They were more than enough to represent the father's legacy. No, honestly, I think the production went very smooth. And we knew what we needed to do to get this quick out. And, you know, the goal was met. Like I said, I told people my intention was to get her name back. So I think we played an important role. We didn't solve the case, but I just know for a fact it all, timing-wise, what we did get the wheels moving.
Well, yeah, I agree with that. When I do events talking about the book that I did, I always bring it up that the documentary you did, this wouldn't get, I mean, maybe 20, 30 years from now they might do it, but you lit a fire under people. And today, what we saw with that stone, that's a direct result of it.
Yeah, a lot of things did happen in, I don't want to say serendipity, but some things happened all leading up to this, where it's like, well, that's another coincidence. That's interesting how the timing worked out, or this person crossed that path. And I think that was just the universe telling us, you're doing something right. You're on the right path. Keep going. You know, getting phone calls from certain individuals, knowing that certain things were happening. It just all worked out for the conclusion. So,
and it's like, where was it that at the beginning of the book you were meeting with, like, your crew eating? Was it Moby Dick's?
We met at Moby Dick's. We also met at the Pancake House.
I'm trying to think, because it's kind of the irony that we're here at Max Seafood in Eastham. It's sort of like the other side of the coin.
Yeah. 4 of us. It might have been Moby Dick's because it was open. It was April. We shot this in April, so I want to see it was Moby Dick's too.
Because that's what I
right down the street.
It's like, boy, it's interesting that, because we passed by it, and I'm like, I think that's it. Everyone listening, go to Max Seafood when they reopen for the season. I can promote them, because we enjoyed it. If it wasn't good, I wouldn't say where we were.
Oh, it's really good chowder. You know, they tried a good penny in October because where else are you going to go? But it was worth the investment. What are you working on now?
So, podcast loads. I'm doing a video podcast now.
Yeah.
Webcam Weekly Wrap Up, I call it. I got this. I got a ring light. I got a new webcam that's 1080p.
Yeah.
So it's like my week. You know, always interesting things that happen. And so I've got that on YouTube. I'm trying to do as much content as I can.
Yep.
I like what I do as a day job as a trainer, but that's not what I want to do with my life. This stuff, this is more what I want to do.
Well, you know, it's in a way, everything you do, every film I've done is a stepping stone to the next film. So like, what's the next book? What's the next movie? What's the next documentary? And right now, Cape Cod keeps pulling me back in. There are 3 potential projects. They're all in development. And one has to do with Henry Beston. The other one's a Lovecraft-inspired horror film. And the third one would be an amazing documentary on a local business that's been open for over 100 years. And just the stories that could come out of those, you know, those walls could talk. It's a mini series, if not a very long documentary. So I'm hoping the phone continues to ring and I can continue to play my part as a storyteller.
Yeah, that third one that you talked about, if that gets greenlit, I'm on board if you need a book for that.
Oh, yeah.
But it's also, I'll keep with podcast interviews, with videos, you know, put links to anything you want in there.
Yeah.
Just to
keep it going.
Yeah. Trying to pay it forward. That's like with Richard, with his book. I told him, I said, if you need me to do any promotion, what I can do, I will do. Brian, you accompanied this crazy man on the Thoreau hike. Do you regret it now with your pain in your legs, or is the lobster and beer worth it?
long-term beer is worth it. If you're not challenged by the hike, then it wasn't a hike; it was a walk.
Very poetic. But he was a pain in the ass as soon as I picked him up. Drove down here, but as soon as we got to the beach and he saw the ocean, the sunrise was still going up at 8 o'clock in the morning, he changed his tune. He was just one with nature. The seals came out. How many? It must have been 100 seals.
Yeah, it had to be over 100 seals.
Every 10 feet there was one popping. That they had the whole line going all the way to Provincetown. And the gulls are out, the little tiny birds with the fast feet.
The plovers.
Yep.
And
millions of things being washed ashore, from driftwood to buoys to just all kinds of crazy stuff. We were witnessing
clams.
Yeah. Tell about the clams.
Clams had to be the size of your fifth, and they were, every 10 feet or so, they'd just be, and we thought they were empty, and we're walking up to them, picking them up, and prying them open, and most of them were still alive. I can't believe it.
I'm figuring if they're that big, they must have got that big because the seagull can't pick them up.
That's what I figured.
I was thinking of God, they wouldn't be able to pick those things up.
Well,
No, for a little bit, you gotta go out there and try to see. Can we see something that the roads are? And like I said, you got the desert to your right, to your left. You got the ocean to your right. Open sky. Where else can you go in this world where there was no one out there but us? You look behind you about half a mile in front. You're by yourself. It's completely zen and quiet. And you unplug, stay off your cell phone for at least 5 minutes, breathe in the beautiful salt air of Cape Cod. And if you can't meditate or just find calm or peaceness in that moment, then you're not going to find it anywhere.
When I was there at Race Point Beach and waiting, I was going to start hiking south. So I'll be honest, I started going a couple 100 yards south. I showed Frank, I shot a video of myself. I'm waiting. And the reason that I went back, I had a heavy coat on. My feet were starting to get tired.
Yeah.
So when you said, we're hurting, I'm like, don't worry, I'll come get you. I did not even a half mile. And I'm like, that's enough.
Well, I'll tell you, by mile 6.5, I could feel it in the lower back. My knee was giving out. Your ankle was giving out.
Yeah.
And I thought, this last 2 miles is going to be tough.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, when you were on the phone with me when I was driving down and you were talking about getting a picture and you were saying top of the world, and I literally was like, I know exactly where they are. And I'm driving and I don't see them yet. So I spun around, but I kind of know where you were on the P-Town side of Pilgrim Lake. Yeah. And I know where that is. Because when I hiked out to the Dune Shacks a few years ago, when I came back, I went south when I should have gone straight.
I met Brian initially through Parks and Recreation for Northern Massachusetts, and we started a hiking group. And it's been a good year for me hiking. I did Mount Washington last month. This is my last hike of the year. But it's more than just exercise. Hiking, if you're not spiritual, you're lying to yourself. Because when you're on a hike and you're out there, you're not the same person you are during the day.
Mm. Yeah, I love it. I'm a big fan. So years ago, I hiked out to Sandy Neck Lighthouse. It's 7 miles each way.
Yep.
I did it in January. So when I got out to the lighthouse, it's I've got to walk all the way back.
Yep.
Sun was starting to set, so I had to walk probably a good 4 miles in the dark.
Oh, in the dark. Okay.
And
I've been there too.
But that's one, once you called, I'm like, because knowing that you guys were going to do the long hike, I'm like, if they're at the point where they're tapping out, it's got to be rough.
Well, honestly, I kept saying that to Frank. I'm like, Frank, we need to consider the fact that we're 3/4 of a mile from the road. So if we're going to tap, we need to know, like 3/4 of a mile before we're going to tap that we're going to tap. Because we were on the other side of, what do you call that lake?
Pilgrim Lake.
On the other side of Pilgrim Lake, you're in the middle of nowhere. There's no roads. There's no way to get out of there. It was, we were 3/4 of a mile away from the road. And Frank was like, I'm done. I'm like, I'm done too, man. And he's like, I'm going to walk straight through these dunes. And I'm like, bushwhacking is not going to be easy. And then he starts walking. And again, it's just natural. Some people go to the left, some people go to the right. I was good at land navigation in the Army. I enjoyed it. So, I know, you got to pick that object in the distance and just walk towards that object, or pick that object and say, I'm going to walk, towards the side of that object. We started walking towards the water tower, and And we still, even walking towards the water tower, dead straight, we still came up on the pond, and we had to skirt the pond. Like we came up to the pond, and we had to backtrack a little to make it around it.
Well, we got some good photos.
Yep.
For the pain, it's like, hey, I look good on camera though, so deal with the pain. Well, Thoreau did it in a suit and leather boots, so we had better equipment, but
What is the story of the wealthy oyster man? Because we went to his grave. Just a little bit about what it means to Thoreau's book and why we went to visit.
I think it's great because the Oyster Fest is next week. Am I right?
I think it's this weekend.
Oh, this weekend. Oh, there you go. Like we went out to the Duck Cemetery, Duck Point Cemetery, I think it is, right off of Route 6. John went. I don't know his name. John. He was known as the Oyster, right? John Newcomb. That's it. He was the Wellfleet Oyster Man that was given that name by Henry David Thoreau when he met him on the Thoreau hike through Cape Cod, the book Cape Cod. He was trying to find lodgings on day 2. They were out there by the pond and the cabins on Wellfleet, and they came upon the first house and was boarded up, and the second house, Fitz Newcomb ran the house to lock the door because Thoreau and William Channing Ellery looked kind of suspicious. And then Mr. Newcomb was in his late 80s. He had pretty much in 1849 was a little kid during the Revolutionary War, and Henry Thoreau loved him because he was a very interesting guy, but he was a primary source for a lot of American history. So he told him how, as a child, he heard the bombs go off at Bunker Hill from Cape Cod, and it's the highlight of the book. He was telling him stories by fireplace about what it meant to be a Wellfleet oyster man. So we went to visit the grave, and very symbolically, some people have left oyster shells at his tomb. So yeah, we went there, paid homage, took a photo, and just adds to the legacy that now we're having clam chowder a little bit down the street.
We are legit outside, right along Route 6 in Eastham at Max Seafood.
Yeah,
Perfect.
Which is the best gluten-free seafood I think I've ever. I will give you the best clam chowder. Period. Regardless of the fact that it's gluten-free.
Well, we're kids of the 80s. We used to pay $2 for a cup of chowder, so you're paying $8 now, and is it worth it? Absolutely. When I ate it, I thought, oh, this is worth every spoonful.
Man, they should be paying us for an advertisement for them.
Yeah. Well, hey, check out the Wellfleet Oyster Man on Route 6, and when you got time, stop at Max for the best chowder on the East Coast.
Absolutely the best chowder I've ever had.